What is the point of being wealthy if you can't enjoy it? If you're sick, tired all the time. I talk to people all the time that have all the money in the world and they're like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. How are you supposed to go out and motivate people and sell and be productive if you can't focus and you're exhausted and you're not sleeping at night and you crash in the middle of the afternoon and you just feel like crap? You can't go to work and motivate anybody if you feel like crap. So first step is get your health in order and the wealth will come naturally.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor. Make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I'm bringing on this year. Without further ado, I'm super excited for this one because health is wealth and I have an amazing guest coming on. So Sage, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to get to hear about what you've got going on, tell us, I guess, your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Okay, great. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be on this podcast. My name is Sage Workinger. I am one of the founders and owners of 10X Health System. And basically, what we do is help make people superhumans, take them from, being sick and tired and maybe they have anxiety, gut issues, slew of all the problems that the majority of the world faces, and try to help them correct those with simple solutions, with diet and vitamins and, very natural solutions instead of just throwing prescriptions and medications at
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to get into the conversation. But before we get into it, I always like to ask, take us back in a time machine. What was Little Sage like growing up? Like, where did this come, all kind of start? Mic check,
Can
hello,
you say it
testing.
one more time?
Yeah, no worries. I just have my editor cut it out.
Sorry.
No worries. I said, and before we kind of get into the health side of things, I always have to ask this question: Just take us back in a time machine to what Little Sage was like growing up. Like, where did this all start?
Well, let's see. I grew up I'm actually originally from Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
Okay.
And then after about 10 years, my mom was sick of digging out of the snow. So we moved down to Naples, Florida. And I grew up most of my life in Naples and then went to Florida State University, got a degree in business and communications. And funny enough, ended up going back out to Colorado and was there another 10 years. And then I came back here to raise my daughter because I have a lot of family in Naples. And that's where Gary and I met. I had gone through a divorce from my daughter's father and ended up meeting him a few years later. He had also gone through a divorce and had three awesome kids. And so we merged families, have the awesome modern family. And we were together for about 2 years. I was doing real estate, high-end rentals. Naples is very much a destination place. So I was doing high-end rentals and working a little bit in the construction arena. And I met Gary. He owned a little restaurant by the beach and he was looking to um, renovate these condos above it. So that was sort of why we met. And then, you know, it now one kiss led to 8 years and getting engaged. So, but yeah, Gary was in the life insurance business. So we were not doing
Really?
anything that was health related. And one day he came to me and he was like, I really want to get out of this business and I want to start a wellness clinic. I want to do hormone therapy. So that was kind of where we started. So we opened up a little clinic in Naples, Florida. And then the rest was history. It's been about 7 years since we did that.
So let me ask you, because my grandparents they raised me, and they grew up in a little
Mhm.
like un campo, like right outside the outskirts of Dominican Republic, and so like for them, they were
Mhm.
all like natural and remedies and home taught stuff, and they had a tea to fix everything, right? There was some concoction that they would cook up, and everything would magically gone. After being in the
That's
States
awesome.
for so long, I feel like my grandparents, specifically my grandma has just become so Americanized that's like, as you said, like, I
Yeah.
think you're at the talk. I don't know if it was you or Gary, but mentioned I think like the average adult over like 60 something has almost like I don't know how many prescriptions, but I know it's a lot of prescriptions at the same time. And I was like,
Yeah.
And I just thought, back to my grandparents, it's like how much like prescription my grandfather's on because he's a type 2 diabetic, and he has a couple other and high cholesterol and a couple other things, I think. And then my grandma and my mom as well, all just on prescriptions. And it's like we grew up, as I said, well, at least they grew up on the outskirts of DR where everything was just like home remedies to solve everything. Is now it's just like prescription, and they think that solves everything. Like if God forbid I cough, like the first thing my grandma throws at me, and I know I always refuse, but she just throws some Robitussin or something, and it's like, no, just give me some tea with lemon and honey. Like that's it. I refuse to drink medicine if I don't have to, unless I'm dying. Don't give me any medicine. I'll take the tea and figure it
I
out. So
agree.
for you guys, once you got into like the starting up the wellness clinic, um
Mhm.
you said hormonal therapy. Like, what did that kind of look like at first, starting off? And for you, I guess because it's kind of you mentioned kind of Gary's idea. What were your
Yeah.
thoughts on it?
I was like, "Nuts, we don't know anything about that. How are we gonna do this?" And, he always comes up with it, like, he gets excited about something, and he's like,
Yeah.
"This we're gonna figure it out. So we may not know exactly what we're doing, but we're gonna figure it out." And so we originally started in an urgent care center because there was
Mm.
doctor and PAs and nurses and staff that knew what they were doing, but they didn't
Yeah.
do hormone therapy. So we thought, all right, it's a win-win. You provide the care and the patient care. We will bring in people and start to promote this hormone therapy concept, and then also IV therapy, which they weren't doing, and we can work this together. But the
Hmm.
really tough part that we noticed very quickly was centers like that have to stay in a box because they're billing insurance. And when you bill
Hmm.
insurance, there's just a lot of rules to it, and there's only a certain amount of things you can do, and there's only a certain amount of things that they will cover. And so it took us about 6 minutes, 6 months, um, basically letting people walk in, get a testosterone shot, get an IV, get a B12 shot, and then walk out the door thinking we were going to bill their insurance company and get reimbursed. And we tried every ICD-9, ICD-10 code there was. We tried all this, trying to, explain away why this was necessary using their labs and all these things. And we didn't get paid back a dime. So for 6 months,
Wow.
we just gave away money. And then we realized also that being in an urgent care center where people are coming in with severe injuries and sicknesses, like someone came in with the measles, regular flu, and then we had a hurricane here actually, and there was a chainsaw injury, and someone came in and was sitting in
Oh.
our lobby bleeding all over the place next to a guy that just wanted a B12 shot. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore. So we built out our own little space, and thank God, and we put it in a nice plaza, and it had some of the highest traffic, and we just did it like old grassroots word of mouth, bringing
Hmm.
people in. We sucked at social media. We were terrible. We couldn't afford advertising or marketing of any kind, and it literally was just we built the business by we help you, you feel better, you tell a friend. And that's
Yeah.
literally how the business grew. So there was
That's
a lot
amazing.
of learning lessons to
So
starting a business we knew nothing about.
So that's what I wanted to ask you next. So you said you went to college for business, right? And then you get into a wellness practice. So like how much YouTube University or research articles or what how did you get so much knowledge? Because when I heard you speak, it's like it would have sounded like you've been in this, in this space researching the science your whole life. So like how did you get such a deep
Right.
understanding of all this like health stuff and all this like genes and all this, I don't know, genetic makeup and all that stuff? Like, how do you start getting into it?
So he's the brilliant one. I mean, he is, if you've ever read Rocket Fuel, it's a great book about a visionary and an integrator. He is definitely the
Hmm.
visionary in our business and relationship, and I'm the integrator. He comes up with
Hmm.
30 ideas. I tell him what we can actually get done, and then I put it in place. So we were a
Yeah.
good team that way. We're definitely the yin and the yang of each other. He has a photographic memory, and he has just this like crazy love and like obsession with science. He's a human biologist by trade. He should have been a doctor, but he didn't. He has ADHD, so he he didn't finish his classes, and he went on to the next thing. Don't talk to his mother about it. but he's absolutely brilliant. Like, he
Yeah.
literally can read an article, digest it, something super complicated topic, digest it, and then, spit it back out and really put it to use. So he nailed it with hormones and labs, and we worked with a couple of physicians in determining the right type of protocols to put people on. And it was different than we started to find we were doing it differently than other people. um, and people were feeling great, and they were losing weight, and they were had more energy, and they were sleeping better at night. But I think that because I didn't really need any hormone therapy, and it took me 2 years of owning the business before I let anybody put a needle in me. So anytime we have somebody that comes to us and they're like, "I'm scared, I can't, give myself an injection or do an IV, I'm too scared to give blood." I always share that story and make them feel better. It's really not that bad, but I did have a fear of needles. So I think that in the beginning, I just was like, all right, I'm running the business, I'm paying the bills, I'm making sure payroll is good, I'm keeping us afloat. That's my job. I don't need to know about, nor did I really understand or care about any of the blood stuff. I know a lot, but I couldn't spit it back at you.
Mm,
But the genetic piece, that came in about 5 years into the business, and it became a personal thing for me because I suffered from there was a period of time where I suffered from severe anxiety, depression,
mhm,
and I had my first panic attack. And we couldn't
mhm,
figure out why. It was like a 4-month period where I just spiraled downwards. Um, and it scared me enough to do the research and to really figure out what was wrong with me. And Gary was brilliant in figuring out what labs to run, and then getting my results from multiple, different tests. Like, we ran 4 or 5 different tests on me,
mhm,
and that's where all the light bulbs went off for him to understand what was going on. And we solved it by cutting out certain things in my diet that I was eating, a very specific multivitamin with cheap raw materials, cheap ingredients in it that I can't process. I'm basically allergic to them. And my allergy isn't something that's like a rash on my skin, like, or it was most people think allergy and they think a rash on your skin or breaking out or something.
mhm,
It was mental. It was very mental. It was definitely gut related
mm,
too, but very mental for me. And that's when I really dug in deep to learn what had happened to me, how can I solve it? And then, now that I've solved it, how can I help other people that are dealing with the same thing on a regular basis? That's so yes, when I talk about the genetics, I know a lot about it. There's so much I don't understand, but I know just enough to help people sort of at my level. If I tried to get
yeah.
into, conversation with a geneticist, I couldn't keep up, but but I'll
You
admit
know
that.
enough.
I'm the first to admit.
Yeah, you know
I
enough
know
to be
enough to be
dangerous, right?
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, right? I think a great place to start, really, now that we're kind of segueing into the topic, is kind of just go over some misconceptions, because a lot of my audience tends to be part of like the younger crowd, the younger generation, and kind of at this age, we think we can eat any and everything, and we'll be good. Our metabolism is straight, so it's like, just because we can burn it off doesn't mean it's not negatively affecting us. So I want to start off with some like misconceptions, and then kind of like break more into like ease into the a little bit more high level complicated stuff, I guess you could say. So in terms of misconception, I know America, is one of like the most unhealthiest, if not the unhealthiest country on the planet. Um, in terms of like obesity rates and things like that. So I wanted to ask, like, um what's up with like with our food? Because even people that, we see like these things like non-GMO or all these different labels in the grocery store when it comes to food, and it's hard now to like figure out like what's healthy food and what's isn't, because like there's so many labels that mean so many different things, and none of us really understand, and none of us really walk around with like a key or an identifier that, this means that when we're grocery shopping. So like, what's going on with our food
Right.
and like at a big like macro level?
It sucks, to be perfectly honest. It sounds dramatic to say this, but they're trying to kill us with the food.
Hmm.
There's so much junk, especially in American food, that's banned in like so many other countries. They wouldn't even dare.
Hmm.
There's everything, I feel like, is genetically modified, which is why now you have to not only look for organic labels, but you got to look for non-GMO labels because everything is so genetically modified. They're even talking about, I just watched something the other day about how they're trying to, make meat like genetically modified meat. I don't know, because we're going to run out of cows or something. There's so much junk out there. So one of the main things that has to do with methylation and the genetic piece, and methylation is the process by which we take in a raw material, either through diet or supplementation, and
Yeah.
convert it into a usable form. So it's like you can't take crude oil out of the ground and put it right in your gas tank. You have to refine it into gasoline, and then you can put it
Mhm.
into the car, and then the engine will recognize that fuel source. It's the same thing with methylation. So if we eat something, our body has to be able to convert it into its usable form to, and if you are taking in the wrong food source or supplementation, which is what happened to me before my breakdown, if your
Mhm.
body can't convert it, then it builds up as something called homocysteine, and you can measure that in the blood. And if you have high levels of homocysteine, it can bring on, depending on what your genetic breaks are, it can bring on anxiety, depression, panic attacks, gut issues, ADD, ADHD, OCD, poor sleep, brain fog, thyroid problems, high blood pressure issues, bad
Yeah.
temper. Nasty temper is like a huge methylation issue. And it's super wild. All I can tell you is that when you get the diet right and you get the supplementation right based on your specific genetics, all of that can calm down. And if you look at our food, one of the main things is we talk a lot about how our grain source is sprayed with something called folic acid. And people think folic acid, you're supposed to take that when you're pregnant, you're nursing, because it prevents neural tube defects in babies in the womb. The problem is that people like me who have a certain gene break called MTHFR, which we lovingly call the motherfucker gene. If you have that gene mutation, sorry, you can blurp that out if you need to.
No
But if
worries.
you have that gene mutation, it means that you're deficient in 5-methylfolate, but not, and you cannot take folic acid. So I can't convert folic acid, which is a synthetic, cheap form of vitamin B9. That's all it is. But I can't convert that into 5-methylfolate. So instead, I just take 5-methylfolate. But that also means that in my food, I can't eat crackers, bread, pasta, rice, basically, think any of your carbs. I can't eat anything that has been sprayed with folic acid, which on the label will say enriched or fortified. So think of like Cheerios. When I was a kid, I ate
Mm.
Cheerios all the time and it was fine. I grew up in the 80s though.
Yeah.
So we weren't adding all this stuff, this junk to our food source. So I ate it and I was fine. Now, if I gave that, well, unfortunately, I did give it to my kid when she was young, and she'd have the most epic temper tantrums, like major,
Mhm.
major meltdowns. And now I realize it's because she has the same genetic break. She can't process that. So I give her a
Yeah.
handful of Cheerios and goldfish as a snack at the zoo, and then wonder why she was losing her mind and have to put her in timeout and, put her in. I used to literally have a soft corner of pillows and soft blankets and soft books because she'd get violent and angry and start throwing stuff. And now I feel terrible because I realize she couldn't process any of that. But if I was giving her something organic that hadn't been sprayed with folic acid or had vitamins that she couldn't process added to it, she would have been fine. So that's what I
Yeah.
try to teach, especially with kids and parents, because I'm, mom first over anything. How can I teach kids to
Mhm.
eat better? And okay, here's another example. I have a friend whose son went off for his first year of college. So here's, thinking your age and your, generation. So he's going off to college. He's at home. He's successful in school. He's successful in sports. He's playing football. He goes off to college for his first semester. And before Thanksgiving, I think we met in like mid-November. Before Thanksgiving, they had to bring him home because he was having suicidal thoughts and it was scaring him. And they thought, well, maybe he's just homesick. Maybe, he just can't adjust to college life yet. So they brought him home. And I asked his mom, I said, let me guess, he's eating pizza, mac and cheese, and ramen noodles. She was like, how did you know? I was like, because that's a direct correlation of eating something he can't process probably I was like, I'll pay for his test if he doesn't have these specific genetic markers, MTHFR being one of them. And I was like, and if he stops eating that and he starts taking the right supplements and he starts eating the right type of diet, which is really just go organic on your carbs, organic or imported usually is okay. I promise you this, we can turn this around. And so he ended up staying home that next semester because they just were nervous. But within a week, 2 weeks of him starting the protocol and then starting to learn what he could and couldn't eat, he's fine. He's back at school. So I love stories like that because they really hit home, especially when you know the person. But that's what happened to me. And when I talked to him and I shared my story of having also suicidal thoughts, which was just a really scary moment to be in.
Hmm.
And it makes me sad that people could have this regularly and then follow through with it when in reality, now listen, people have lots and lots and lots of issues that could lead to that. But the fact that it came out of nowhere for him, it came out of nowhere for me. There was something that we could pinpoint and we figured out for both of us that worked. And so it just makes me think, how many more people could we help that it's just because they're eating terrible food?
Yeah.
And I get a lot of flack online, and if you when you post this, you're gonna get a lot of comments. People get nasty and they're like,
Yeah.
"You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. You don't have a medical degree." And I'm like, "You're right. I actually say that openly. I don't have a medical
Yeah.
degree, but I have a personal experience where that was really scary and Gary helped me fix it. And that's what we're trying to do
Yeah.
at 10x Health is help people as many people as we can."
Yeah, I feel like health, when it comes to health, like everyone talks about like politics and all that stuff, but like I feel like health is one of those niches that it's like you'll get chewed alive in health. Like no matter how, you could
Nasty.
be have like 12 degrees in health and you'll still get chewed alive because one person tried it and it didn't work out for them, and for whatever reason their
Yeah.
comment section is their therapy and they just unleash whatever they experience in the comment section. It's insane.
Yeah.
um I
Uh,
follow a couple
I've
people
been
for health
called
as well.
retarded. I've been called so many names. Gary gets, he gets
Yeah.
beat up so much because he's not a doctor. I mean, it's people get
Yeah.
nasty, and I'm like, he helped Dana White, which I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
that
the
story
UFC
about
guy.
Dana White in the
Yeah.
UFC. Yeah. So he feels amazing, and people will be like, they scammed you. And he goes, yeah, I got scammed out of 50 pounds and diabetes. And he like literally it makes me laugh because he'll go on to Gary's social media and attack
Yeah.
people on his social media, and he's like, fine, if you don't want to, if you think it's bullshit, then keep going to your
Yeah.
regular doctor, keep taking all those medications. He's like, I don't care
Mhm.
what you do. People think, of course, oh, we must be paying him to say all of that, and we're not. He pays full price, and he's our biggest referrer because he feels and looks so incredible.
Yeah.
So
It's
you can do it, but you got to dedicate. I mean, we can't just give you vitamins and say everything's going to be fine. I mean, there's got to be diet and exercise involved too.
yeah.
It's trifecta. But when people decide to flip the switch and make and dedicate it and put their health first, I mean, it's incredible what can happen, and it doesn't matter what people say on social media.
Yeah.
You're always going to have haters no matter what you say. So,
100%. It reminded me of there's one time. So, um, for me, I eat pretty healthy. I don't actively like really watch what I eat. I just eat pretty healthy and eat what my grandma cooks. She cooks
mhm.
lunch almost every day. And then from there, I don't ever really eat snacks or drink soda
Oh,
or anything like that or juice. And so I eat pretty good. And one I remember in
good.
college, my freshman year, this is before the pandemic like took over the world. I remember I was talking to a nutritionist major, and she was trying to tell me how you're not supposed to intermittent fast, but they eat 6 small meals at each given point throughout the day, and yada yada yada, and how like intermittent fasting you're not supposed to do. And it's like, how are you gonna tell me how what I'm supposed to do for my body? And I feel amazing. I was in I wouldn't say the best shape, but I was pretty up there in my best shape. I feel like my best shape was like this past year. I've really been like my best shape, but I was in great shape at the time. And it's like because you read a textbook one time in your class and maybe got like a,
I know.
you think that you understand the. I feel like health is just there's too many things going on, and I kind of wanted to before we continue kind of summarize everything you talked about so far, so I can kind of make sense of it all. So you mentioned how like our bodies, right, are like similar to cars, right? We can't just insert the fuel, like the food into us and expect their body to like absorb it. We have to eat it and then break it down. That's what gets absorbed. And now some of us, depending on what our, our genetic makeup is, some of us don't have um the right, I guess, makeup, I guess, to absorb certain things, and that can lead to it getting kind of built up and leading to a whole bunch of things like you mentioned, like anxiety, suicidal thoughts, diabetes, all this other stuff. Correct? On a right track a little bit. Okay,
Correct.
and then
You totally are.
from there, I want to talk about like the enriched and fortified. It sounds like the word choice makes it sound like it's a really good thing. Is there anything else that, like, for
It
me,
does.
I know when it comes to hair products, I know what to look out for. When it comes to food, I know
Mhm.
high fructose corn syrup is one that I try to avoid at all costs. I actually, after you
Yes.
guys spoke at Ken Johnson's event, I had a biotin gummy that I used to take, and I looked at the ingredients list, and I've been taking it for a while. And I think the second ingredient on the thing was high fructose corn syrup. I'm like, I'm throwing this out. Like as soon as I came back
Yeah.
from the conference, I checked like my little, because that's the only supplement I take, and I was like, yeah, no, this is gone. This is out the door. Threw it
Yeah.
out. Never took it ever again. And that is the end of that little biotin history. But like, is there anything else that we should look out for that are just common rules of thumb? Because I feel like it's easier to eliminate certain things than it is to go start buying a bunch of organic food, just because organic food is a little expensive. So like, what are some things we should try to avoid at all costs if we can't get to like a fully organic diet?
Yeah, totally agree. So another big one that I warn people about is called cyanocobalamin. It's a cyanide-based B12. So, and it's in everything. It's in, all the energy drink, the majority of energy drinks. So think
Mm-hmm.
Monster, Celsius, um, 5 Hour Energy, Red Bull. And then it's in things like emergency packets or liquid IV. It's in
Mm-hmm.
children's, like Flintstone vitamins. It's in the majority of all multivitamins like Centrum and all the main ones that you see lining the shelves of CVS and Walgreens.
Yeah.
Um, and it's because it's a man-made version of B12. And again, some people can process it just fine and they don't have any issues with it. But there's a large percentage of the population that cannot process it,
Mm-hmm.
and it leads to issues like gut issues. So if you have, it can, upper and lower gut issues. It leads, the funny part is that people will come to us and they're like, oh yeah, I've got gas, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, acid reflux, heartburn. And they'll be like, God, I'm constantly reaching for Pepto Bismol or Tums or, Pepsid AC. And the
Mm-hmm.
crazy part is that those medications actually deplete your level of B12. But guess what helps correct the balance in your gut? Vitamin B12, but only if you can process the type of B12. So there's 4 kinds of B12. 3 are found naturally in nature, and then 1 is man-made. So the man-made one is cheap, it's easy to produce, it's easy to add to, inexpensively to a vitamin or a product. The crazy thing is that I can't even tell you like, oh, just go organic, because a lot of organic products have cyanocobalamin still. A friend of mine was sending me labels of their kids' formula and these little like snack things that they eat, these little carby
Mm-hmm.
snack things. And I'm looking at the ingredients, and the ingredients list is beautiful. It's organic carrots and peas and all the organic things. It was spot on. They're paying extra for it and whatnot. And then at the end of the list, it says cyanocobalamin is B12, and I was like, listen, I'm not going to tell you like don't buy this anymore, because there's probably not another better option out there.
Yeah.
Um, it's 20% of their daily B12. So I wouldn't like give it 3 times a day, maybe one serving is fine. But it's disappointing that the manufacturer doesn't understand that not every child can process cyanocobalamin.
Yeah.
Their formula, good God, the formula was worse. The formula, again, it's the highest end formula on the market. It's it's organic, and it's, got all the right type of ingredients, until you read part of the label and it's got not only cyanocobalamin and folic acid, which would spin somebody like me out.
Yeah.
Um, But then the seed oils, there was canola oil, vegetable oil, palm oil, saffron oil, and sunflower seed oil. And then it had a little bit of coconut oil. And I was like, why not just make the whole thing coconut oil? Like coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, those are great oils. But the rest of them are terrible and will totally tear up that child's gut. And then they
Mm,
wonder why their kid is having all these problems with going to the bathroom. So it's sad that companies just don't understand methylation. They don't understand these ingredient issues. And but then part of me wonders if they totally understand it and they realize that it leads to you buying medications, because if you're taking in the wrong type of food, then you're going to need a medication to solve those issues. So that's why anti-anxiety medications and antidepressants and Adderall and Vyvanse for ADD and ADHD,
mhm.
are they make a lot of money off of those. They don't necessarily want that to go away.
Yeah.
Um, so for Okay. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answered your
No,
question
it
there.
does perfectly. So
I got long-winded on that one.
no worries. So that you actually explained it perfectly. So now I want to get into like a little bit of the more complex stuff. So you mentioned one of the genes, the MTH something something something.
FR.
Um,
Yep.
so
MTHFR.
how many like genes? Because I mean, it's easier to like with the illustration that you had on the presentation, but I
Yeah.
guess to the best of your ability, since most of these people will be listening audio only, okay, is there a way that you could explain like the genes and stuff like that, and like, the turning on and off without like a picture?
Yes, absolutely. So we have five gene genetic uh, markers that we pull. There's a ton more that are related to methylation, but these five specific genes are what we call actionable genes. And so by
Hmm.
actionable genes, I mean that, like you said earlier, you can turn them on and off by adding in the right or wrong raw materials through diet or
Hmm.
supplementation. So you start at the bottom. There are five genes, and you start at the bottom. It's like a sandbag task. So when we pull this gene panel on people, it shows us three different colors: red, yellow, and green. So all five of them are supposed to be green and operating at 100%. When they're yellow, it means that one parent has passed on the genetic mutation and it's operating at best about 40%. And when it's red, it means both parents have passed it on and that gene just isn't functioning at all. And the way to make those yellows and reds green every day, and I say every day, because people are always like, oh, if I just take the vitamins for a month, am I good to go? Like, will I be solved?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you're going to metabolize through that diet, or, whatever food you're eating, or vitamins you're taking. It's going through your system in 24 hours. So every
Hmm.
day you have to take your vitamins and have the right diet. Otherwise you can screw it up. But you can turn those reds and yellows to green. So we can correct the methylation cycle every day by knowing what raw materials we're missing.
Hmm.
So it starts at MTHFR. Now, it's the worst one to have because it's both mind and gut related, but it's the
Hmm.
easiest one to fix because it's at the beginning of the chain. So if we can fix that guy and add in 5-methylfolate, so that we can start the conversion process right from the beginning, then we're going to help the chain on the way up. The next one up in the line is called MTR, and that's typically a lower gut symptom. So when I see that activated in somebody, I know they're suffering. Again, the funny thing is you can have constipation one day and then have diarrhea the next. And people are like, well, why is it like that? Their gut motility is not working correctly. So here's a
Hmm.
funny story. I think I told this one on stage about the woman that came up to me at a wedding. She's like a 50-year-old woman, and she comes up to me, gives me this big hug, and she's crying, and she's like, I am pooping every day. And I laugh so hard because I'm like, I love this stuff. And we're having this whole conversation in front of the bartender about, how she poops every day now. But the thing is, as funny as that might sound to the majority of us whose gut function is fine, she was not having bowel movements, like maybe once a week if she was lucky. Sometimes it was once every 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
that's so unhealthy. But she's gone her entire life, like even since she was a baby, having those issues. So
Yeah.
just by adding in the right raw materials, which for gut function is usually magnesium, zinc, and the right form of B12. And just by adding those simple raw materials in, you correct the methylation, you correct the gut motility, and things clear up. So, so then the next one up is MTRR, and MTRR is usually upper gut issues like acid reflux and heartburn. And
Mhm.
then it can also lead to thyroid problems in the family, high blood pressure issues in the family. A lot of times we get people that will go to the doctor, they've got high blood pressure, doctors can't figure it out. So they run all these different tests on them. All of the tests come back normal. And they're like, well, we're going to call it idiopathic hypertension, which really just means high blood pressure, hypertension of an unknown origin. Idiopathic means we have no idea why you have this. And the reality is that they could be the healthiest person, but when we run the gene test, they've got that genetic break, and this is why their methylation's not working, and it is why they're having high blood pressure issues. As soon as we put them on the right supplements, everything opens up, and then they don't have the issues anymore. Um, that one can also, that's our little snappy temper gene. So when it's yellow, I can be like, okay, you're snappy. You can be calm, calm, calm. And then you just like 0 to 100 like that. But when it's red, I'm like, oh, you're nasty.
Uh-huh.
that's the, that's the gene break, which sometimes surprises me in people. Like I've met a lot of people that seem to, be so calm and they're like chill. And I see that red MTRR and I'm like, oh, you're hiding something. Like behind closed
Mhm.
doors, you're nasty. And I'm usually right. And because
Yeah.
I share my own stories, people will open up to me. But that's where I find that a lot of people have to depend on prayer and meditation or yoga or some sort of form of like calming themselves down. Maybe they're smoke weed to chill themselves out, but because they don't know how to manage their that temper, that anger that just comes out of nowhere. Um, the next one up in the chain is called AHCY. It's very rare, but when we see that one, it typically indicates that someone has an addiction problem. And maybe it's not drugs or alcohol, it could be a work addiction or a working out addiction. And usually, as people go through life with their addictions, maybe as kids, they're addicted to playing video games or maybe
Mhm.
smoking cigarettes, but then they'll shift from the bad addictions to good addictions. But either way, they're always suffering with just constantly having like thinking about something every day they wake up. So when we correct that genetic break, I had a guy who had gone to rehab 9 times. And I said, if you don't have this break, I will pay for your test. And he did the test and he came to me a few months later and he like cried to me too, because he was like, I literally don't have that feeling when I wake up in the morning. And it's just from putting him back at balance. I mean, that's all this is. It's just putting everyone back into balance. And then the top gene mutation, the fifth one, is called COMT, COMT. And that one is usually our type A perfectionists. They hold themselves to a very high standard. It's usually our entrepreneurs. They hold themselves to a very high standard, but then the problem is that then they expect other people to be held to that same standard, and then they're
Yeah.
super disappointed in people that don't meet those standards, so it's hard to work with them. That's why they're entrepreneurs. They're not good at being micromanaged. They don't like to be told what to
Mm.
do. So you're smiling because that might be you.
Yeah. Everything aside from like the
You're nodding your
perfectionist,
head.
like I feel like I'm not a perfectionist, but everything you else you hit it right on the head. It's like everything, like it's like I
It's
do not
also
like
like
being caged in. Like
yeah. It's hard you get racing thoughts too. So as your environment quiets, your mind wakes up. So that's where the poor sleep factor comes into play, where you could be just completely exhausted and your head hits the pillow and your mind wakes you up. And then you start worrying about stuff you shouldn't really worry about because there's nothing you can do to solve it at midnight. So sometimes I always tell people, I'm like, do you have a little notepad by the side of your bed? And you're like, think if you just write it down, it's out of your head so you can go back to sleep. And they're like, oh my God, I have lists upon lists upon lists. It's very much, can be ADD, ADHD, because it's attention overload disorder. It's really just that they can't pay attention to so many things. And so it gets tricky with a comp T break and especially if they have a comp T break and an MTHFR break. Because remember, the comp T is mostly has to do with the mind, but MTHFR has to do with the mind and the gut. That's why it's the worst one. So then when you have two mind things activated, that's where people really don't sleep. They wake up in the middle of the night. They might be like, oh, I wake up at, sunrise because I'm ready to start my day. That's not really it. It's they're waking up at 4 a.m. and just they can't get back to sleep. So they just wake up and think that that's when they're supposed to start their day. That's
Yeah.
not really normal. So you should be able to sleep all the way through the night. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's wild when I do a lab review with someone and people think I'm a psychic because I can tell them examples and stories that nobody else knows about them. Nobody talks about their gut issues. So if I can nail that, if I
Mm.
can nail the racing thoughts and and the hormone, and it causes hormone imbalances, so they might have brain fog. I can have a young person in their 20s who really
Yeah.
shouldn't have any kind of hormone problems experience hormone like issues because their methylation is so off. So I
Mm.
love this whole thing that we do. The genetic piece is so cool to me, because I can really tell someone about themselves so they know that I'm not just making it up,
Yeah.
and then tell them how to correct and solve it.
Yeah, this reminds me kind of like attachment styles. Like I remember when I first started learning about like attachment styles and psychology, and then I was like able to start
Mhm.
like I felt like a mind reader. I was like, oh, you went through something when you
Yes.
were younger, and it was like now, like
Yes.
while you were talking, like and you started talking about like gut issues and stuff like that, like not to share her business or whatever, but I guess I can because that's my little sister. But she has like the lady you said with the poor bowel movement. It's
Yeah,
like she's been going through that. So it's like okay, she now I'm trying to put two and two together while you're talking to me. It's like all right, she probably has like a gene that's not turned on right now that's not is or isn't working optimally that's causing her to do that
exactly.
and it's just starting to connect. So let me summarize what you just said because you're gonna you talked about five different ones. So pretty much there's five different actionable like genes that you guys track with your blood work, and depending on um, how your parents pass them down, they're either working great, right? They're working suboptimally, or they're just not working at all. They're not turned on at all. And if we eat the right things day in day
Right.
out, we can turn it on or turn them off, depending on what we eat, whether it's food or supplements, right?
Correct. You got
Okay.
it.
I'm
And
starting
and
to
the
get it
cool
for the
thing
most
too
part.
is no, you're getting it perfect, and it's great too because we can see it in the blood work. So
Mm,
it all matches. It really does match up with the blood work, and so you can prove to someone that, okay, let's say when we pull their blood, let's say they don't do a gene test because they're not ready to buy both at the same time. That's
mhm,
totally fine. So if we pull your blood work and your thyroid is off, your hormones are not balanced, and then your homocysteine is elevated, then we can say, listen, you're having these are very similar to genetic
mhm,
issues, and if we run the gene test on you, and then we can help supplement the right way and put together a formula for you, and it
mhm,
makes such a difference, and then we can solve so many things. So the whole idea I always tell people is, what exactly is our goal here? It's to get it back into balance, to take what's too high, bring it down low, what's too low, bring it up high, and really just correct all these issues so that you do sleep well and you have energy and you don't have a crash at 2 p.m. Back to when you were talking about diets, and like everybody has a fad diet, and people are always asking me, what diet are you on? Okay, I don't diet. I just don't eat like a jerk. Like I really try to, balance things. I've cut out sugar. I don't really crave sugar. I used to crave salt, but I've kind of like avoided that too because the seed oil thing started to
Yeah,
freak me out. I didn't want to eat all these potato chips with seed oils. They don't make you feel good.
yeah,
So I like salads. I like grilled chicken. I like fish. I try to eat as healthy as I can and stay away from, like you said, the stuff like sodas. And I don't know, I didn't grow up on soda, but one of the big things is that when someone does come to us and we do have to put them on a diet and they really do need specific direction, we put them on a diet specific to their blood work. So
mhm,
not fasting is not for everybody. Keto diet is not for everybody. In fact, it can
mhm,
really screw you up more if you just start like, oh, my friend started doing a keto diet, she lost all this weight. Oh, I'm going to try doing it. Well, it may not match up to what your body needs. And then you're
mhm,
just, you're going to screw yourself up. You're also going to put yourself through torture for no reason.
yeah,
So we will tell people, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, so and so told me that fasting, I should be fasting from, 8 to 8 or whatever. That may not work out for you. So we tried to tell them what to do based on their blood work. So it really is, we really do try to make it, super detailed, very specific. I think that's what sets us apart from, going to your standard doctor and getting labs pulled is, your doctor's only able to spend like 5 minutes with you. And then ultimately they're not going to tell you diet and vitamin recommendations because they're not making money off of that. They got to
Yeah.
recommend some sort of prescription to you to make any money. So we really go through it with you. We, spend an hour with a patient and really dive in and explain, here's what you're doing right. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's how we can correct that. And then put a specific protocol together.
Yeah, no, 100%. What like one of the main thing I noticed personally is like you guys are so like down to earth, and like I follow you guys on
Thank you.
IG now, so I see Gary and he's like
Aw,
doing backflips at the airport, and it's like this guy,
yes.
it's just like you just
You
gotta
see
get.
my one where I caught him dancing at the gym?
Yeah, I think it was dancing. He was doing something. Like it's like it's just like a ball of life. And so Sage, I'm so glad I had you on the show. I'm glad that I was able to talk to you in a little bit more like a
Thank
one-on-one setting,
you.
so kind of break down all this and make it easier to grasp. Because at the conference, I was like, great presentation. If you asked me what you said afterwards, I was like, yeah, because it was just like
Repeat
the
it back,
gene.
but
But
no, and that's again, that's why we're the good yin and yang of each other. He, like I said earlier, he really explains the science behind things, so you know
mhm,
that he's not just making it up. I mean, you can go and research
mhm,
anything that he says, and you'll find that he's spot on. But I help try to just break it down in English, and I can't
yeah,
cover all the things. I can't read your blood labs to you. I'll never pretend like I can, but
yeah.
my staff is incredible at it. But I really can go through the genetics like like nobody's business. Did you end up getting the gene test done?
I didn't, so I'm going to. I just been so
Okay.
busy and everything, but I
Well,
need to
remind
get it
me,
done.
get it done, and then
Yeah,
we could do your lab review. I don't know if you'd be willing to
yeah,
do it on air, but we could do your lab review together and show people
yeah,
like how it really works and how it breaks down. It's really cool.
yeah. Because like for me, like I started getting into, I guess, health. As I said, I've always been in pretty good shape. I've been an athlete. As I said, I never really ever ate bad. I never ate like
Yeah.
fast food, partially because we didn't have money growing up for fast food. So it's like,
Yeah.
we did. So that also helps with eating a healthier lifestyle, just because we never had the money to go
True.
out to
You
get
get,
fast
otherwise
food.
you get addicted to that stuff.
Yeah, and so my
Yeah.
senior
It's
year of high
addictive. Fast
school,
food is addictive.
I wanted to get abs. It was like my last month, or I was like, my prom was coming up, and I didn't want to get abs for prom. It's not like I was gonna go to prom shirtless or anything, but I just, for me, the way my brain works, I have to attach dates, like to stuff to goals. So I was like, all right, I want to get abs. What's the next big date that I have coming up? Prom. All right, I'm gonna get abs before prom. That has nothing to do with prom at all. And that's when I started looking into intermittent fasting. That's when I started getting into like health and nutrition, and that kind of, as I said, being a high school student, you're just extremely malnourished because you never get to eat school lunch because school lunch is nasty, and then you have sports, and then you have to practice, and then so you're not really eating there, and then you have to go home, and it's already, you just had a whole 12-hour shift. School starts at 6, you come back at 6, and now you finally get your
Ugh.
first actual meal a day, and that's when I started
Yep.
looking more into nutrition and stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely going to, and I for me, I really want my girlfriend to go through it because she has a lot. I'm pretty like normal when it comes to health. Like I go to get my physical, and it's like, do you do
Yep.
this? No. Any medications? No. Any allergies? No. And it's like no, it's just across the board because I'm just super healthy.
Boring.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I definitely want to, and I know for a fact she needs to. Um,
Yeah.
right. I think she like
And
for
I
the
think
past.
that's the big thing is everybody knows somebody that's suffering with something that
Yeah.
some symptom that I just brought up. I mean,
Yeah. She
it's
suffered from like
the
six.
amount of people, yeah, the amount of people that are all green, meaning they have no issues. And it's
Yeah.
wild when you meet somebody like that. They're so chill. And then their labs match too. And I'm like, you're going to live to 120. Like they're so healthy, not even needing to be, but it's just they have perfect genetics. I have only seen maybe 10 people in like and again, most people don't get the test done unless they feel like they need it. They relate to some of those
Yeah.
symptoms. But then you have people that they relate to every symptom and they're lit up like a Christmas tree. And
Yeah.
those people, it breaks my heart when I see, really severe breaks because they're just suffering
Yeah.
and nobody understands why. And then people
100%.
tell them to just calm down and just breathe through it and just, meditate and do yoga and say your prayers at night. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, those are great ways to like put a band-aid on it. And I don't discount any of that, but we got to
Mhm.
fix what's the
The
root
issue.
problem,
Yeah.
It's got to, yeah, and it's coming from inside. Let's fix the inside root problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Even I
definitely.
have a friend who's got PTSD from, going to war. He was in 5 tours in Iraq and
Oh my
Afghanistan. He's a
goodness.
badass. But he came home with a lot of stuff going on. And he got on our program and he says it literally, he was on so many medications and
Mhm.
he's gotten off of all of them. And he's just on our vitamin protocol. And he says he feels
Wow.
better than he's ever felt. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of stuff that we can correct. And I just
Mhm.
love what we do. I get excited about talking about it.
Yeah, same. It's so interesting, and I was gonna say something about oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought. I was gonna bring something up. Oh,
Sorry, I
that's what I no no
interrupted.
wait, I remember.
You're talking about
Back in
your
high
girlfriend?
school, no, back in high school, I used to say
Mhm.
that I was genetically superior, jokingly, but I always believed it to be true because I told
Maybe you are.
I told myself that I'm genetically elite so many times that I genuinely believe that I am now. So I'm definitely hope that the test matches up so I wasn't lying all those years. But Sage, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you and learn more about what you guys have going on over at 10x Health? As I said, I'm super glad that our worlds connected and crossed because as soon as you guys spoke, I was like, yeah, I got to get you on and just figure this stuff out because health to me is like I refuse to let myself go ever. I just want to be in the best shape
Good,
for life.
good. And then when you're doing that, you're encouraging other people around you to do it too. And that's like if
100%.
everybody was on that same train,
Mm,
it would be incredible and the world would be a happier, better and healthier place.
100%.
But you can find me at on Instagram. I am not great at all the social media platforms, but I'm pretty good at Instagram. So it's at Sage Workinger. So SageWorkinger. And then on there, I have a link that kind of leads to other podcasts I've done, a lot of stuff, information about 10x Health. And then there's a link to the gene test as well if you're interested in gene or blood. I think the gene link is www.your10xtest.com. So your your 10x test.com. So it's great. They mail it right to you. It's a cheek swab,
Mhm.
super easy. You can literally cheek swab yourself at home. You mail it back in the prepaid FedEx envelope to the lab, get the results in a couple of weeks, and then we send a whole full report that gives all the breakdown. It's got explanations in English, just so it really helps break down the symptoms and the issues and the protocol that fixes it. And then there's great videos of Gary really explaining the science of it so people can dive a little deeper on it. So it's an excellent report. And then you can also, if you want to dive deeper and talk with one of our providers, you can also do a call with one of them as well.
Amazing. So now I know I held you up a little bit over, so I'm gonna try to make this as lightning as possible. Our famous 5 questions. So, question number one: what is the most
That's fine.
impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Oh, you broke up a little
You
bit.
broke.
Say
I
that one
broke up.
again.
I said, what is the most
Yeah.
impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Oh boy, that I should have researched these questions before I got on here. God, well, when you turn 45, you realize there's a lot. Honestly, I can't help but say that this whole lesson that I've learned through going through, again, my own personal mental breakdown, which again, most people would never open up or talk about that because it's so sensitive. People don't like to admit their weaknesses, especially the world that I feel like I'm in with, entrepreneurs and very successful business people. But I can't tell you how much this, getting my hormones and my genetics in balance helped save me. And and I feel like I've been able to make, not only did it have a great impact on me, but I've been able to have a great impact on other people in
Mhm.
helping them. And so I'd say that that's one of the big ones right now.
Amazing. What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
Kindness, being kind no matter what somebody's situation is, and just being aware that we're not all in the same boat. We are,
Mm.
and we don't have, not everybody's happy every day. And some people have, struggles that they're dealing with that, again, that they're not open about. And if everybody was just a little bit more kind and patient, I think the world would be a better place.
If you had to change someone's life with one book, which book would you recommend?
Honestly, the one that I really loved was Rocket Fuel. It really
Mhm.
saved Gary and I's relationship, and it's not just for people that work together. I really do feel like it's for people that are, or not even. It was great for someone where you've got two people that are in love and trying to run a business together, because one of the biggest things that we learned is that as a couple starting a business together, if you have a bad day at the office, you're having a bad day at home. But if you're having a good day at the office, you have a great day at home. And it's Rocket Fuel really was about finding your visionary and your integrator and how well you can work together. But I really think it wasn't just in, yes, it was written more so for business owners, but it was such a great book even for couples in a relationship that aren't working together, because especially if you tend to butt heads with your significant other because you're again black and white, yin and yang, not the opposite, think oppositely, but you're in love.
Yeah.
It's like the opposites attract thing.
Hmm.
Read that book. It was really good at kind of breaking it down and helping us understand each other.
What is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind?
It's wild that I don't think I ever had any kind of big hopes or dreams. Gary definitely did. He's always been sort of on a path to, like, how can I save the world and be Superman.
Yeah.
I never really was that way. I'm more quiet. I'm in the background. I don't need to stand out. But my God, I really am loving the outcomes that we've had from this
Yeah.
whole methylation thing and helping people. And so it was a big goal of ours when we sold our original company, Streamline Medical Group, and formed 10X Health, and tried to become bigger, because how could I get this message out to the world? How could we help and
Hmm.
save more people? Anytime I hear about somebody having miscarriages, I didn't even talk about that part of it.
Hmm.
Somebody in the news the other day, she's had her ninth miscarriage. She's finally being open about it. She's talking about it. And I immediately called one of our patients that I thought maybe might know her and could make an introduction, because I was like, we could help her. A lot of this has to do with methylation. She's probably taking folic acid. She shouldn't be taking folic acid. Like, so many of these little things that if you could correct. We have what we used to call streamline medical babies, because we had another patient who had 9 miscarriages and then had a little boy, and they call him their streamline miracle baby. And it really just, there's a lot of things that we can help with: anxiety and depression and ADD and ADHD. Stop putting your
Yeah.
kids on medication. They don't need it. Just don't send them off to school with Pop Tarts and cereal, crappy cereal in their system, and they won't go to school and not be focused and fall asleep in the afternoon, or
Mm.
act out and end up in the principal's office. There's whatever we put in our mouths. If that's my main message, whatever you put in your mouth, notice and pay attention to how it affects your mind and your gut. We all think about how we get a
Mhm.
stomach ache from our food that we eat, but nobody is thinking about how it affects your mental state if you're eating the wrong food. So pay attention to it. So the more that I can get that message out, without people thinking I'm crazy, the
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. And the
So that
final,
would be my impact,
yes.
hopefully.
And the final question for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
They gotta get healthy. What is the point of being wealthy if you can't enjoy it? If you're
Hmm.
sick and tired all the time. I talk to people all the time that have all the money in the world, and they're like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Hmm.
So the first thing you can do, how are you supposed to go out and motivate people and sell and be productive if you can't focus and you're exhausted and you're not sleeping at night and you crash in the middle of the afternoon and you just feel like crap? You can't go to work and motivate anybody if you
Hmm.
feel like crap. So first step is get your health in order, and the wealth will come naturally.
Amazing. So, Sage, thanks again for hopping on. That is all for the interview. This was super great. I'm glad that, as I said, we got to do this and put this together. And I'm super excited to stay in touch and making sure that my genetical eliteness was as high as I made it up to be.
Hey, maybe you're one of the rare ones. Maybe you're all perfect.